Hey guys, welcome to Reddit Brew. You know the drill. We're back at it again with the r/entitledpeople Reddit stories. So let's just jump into it, shall we? My entitled parents kidnapped me and held me hostage at their home after a major car accident. I, 32-year-old female, was in a major car accident in January of 2021. Ironically, I had been taking my boyfriend to the ER because he had bleeding ulcers and ended up getting admitted to the hospital that night. This was still when they were enforcing COVID rules, so I was booted out of the hospital at about 3 in the morning. When I left, it was snowing, and not thinking, hopped on the freeway, which wasn't a good idea. I had been driving a lifted Jeep Cherokee with mud terrain tires, so not the best ever for snowstorm driving. Getting off the freeway to go home, my brakes locked up, and I went into a light pole head first at about 60 miles per hour. My Jeep did not have airbags, which was dumb, and needless to say, my car was totaled, and I had to be extracted from the car by the fire department. This whole time, I had been blacking out and losing consciousness, and I still get random flashes. I don't have all my memories from that night, or several months after the incident. I got sent to the nearest trauma center, which was the same hospital I had just left. The nurses felt pretty bad about kicking me out. I ended up with moderate to severe TBI, broken under my left eye, hairline fractures on my skull on the left side, bruising behind my ears, and black eyes. I had also cut open the inside of my mouth, had multiple lacerations all over my face. I broke my driver's side window with my face, broke and bruised some ribs, had hairline fractures in my spine, broke my right wrist, my right knee, and my left foot, which required 2 surgeries, and I still need approximately 3 more. Needless to say, I was not doing great. I had recently gotten divorced the previous year and think that my entitled parents decided that my accident was my boyfriend's fault. I had to stay in the hospital for a total of 12 days, in which case, the mild family drama exploded into a severe family inferno. As I got closer to being released, all I had wanted to do was go home to my boyfriend and our kids. He had 2 previously, and I had 1. My entitled mother decided that wasn't what she wanted. On the phone, we sound almost identical. The whole time I was in the hospital, she had been getting on the phone and impersonating me to my apartment complex management, even going as far as calling the cops to get my boyfriend and his 2 kids removed. They were not on my lease yet. My mother also forged my signature on hospital paperwork and made up a story about how my boyfriend was abusive to me and got him banned from seeing me at the hospital. Again, forging my signature and writing a letter stating I didn't want to see him. This whole time I was still suffering the effects of my TBI and was delirious from the combination of pain medications and brain fog from my head injury. My mother even had the locks changed on my apartment without my consent. When I was finally released from the hospital, I was in a wheelchair because of my broken foot that had just had 2 plates and 10 screws surgically put in to hold it together, and an ankle to hip brace on my other leg from my knee being broken. I requested to go home to my apartment, but again, my mother played it that I couldn't go home because I had a 2nd-story apartment and couldn't take care of myself. So I got sent to stay at my parents' house against my will, an hour away from home, because my mother wanted to make sure I wasn't going to let my boyfriend come back home. I spent almost a whole miserable month there. My mother refused to take me home even after I got crutches and was able to bear some weight. Initially, they refused to even go get my crutches because they didn't want me to have more mobility. Eventually, it got to the point where I had a friend come pick me up from my mom's house because they kept refusing to let me go. As I gained clarity in my mind and was taken off the intense pain medication, I was able to start rectifying the situations that my mother made a huge mess of in my life, but I'm still trying to recover in some areas. I didn't find out until much later when medical bills started coming in that my mother had called my boyfriend's health insurance company, impersonating me, and had me removed from his insurance. It took months of calling and badgering and footwork on my part to get the situation figured out and have the insurance pay for what they're supposed to pay for. It almost caused me to go bankrupt. At the same time, my mother signed me up for minimal health insurance coverage through the state that I had no idea I was enrolled in until I got a bill later stating that I had back owed fees. Needless to say, I eventually completely cut both my mother and my father out of my life after finding out how much they tried to control and how much they messed my life up. I ended up getting protection orders after they tried to break into my house, stalked me, and sent my family and friends over to harass me. The whole incident was the straw that broke the camel's back. There was quite a bit of retaliation on their side that threw my life into a total tailspin ever since. But I'm sticking to my guns, and I'm not backing down. Update. Wow, I'm a little overwhelmed with how fast this post exploded yesterday. I was definitely not expecting that. I tried to keep up with as many comments and replies as possible, but I figured this might be an easier way to answer the questions that have been thrown at me. But first off, I definitely understand those who are skeptical about my post. It's more than a little bizarre, and I'm probably not the best at describing some of the situations, but I seriously appreciate all the great advice that has been given, and I'm looking at some of the other options listed in the comments as well as what I'm already doing. I think the easiest part for me to clear up is the questions about the insurance and how my mother got me off the insurance I had with my boyfriend and put me on the state insurance without my or my boyfriend's consent. As an adult, I can call in and cancel my coverage at any time, with or without the policyholder's knowledge. There doesn't need to be a major life change in order to be taken off a policy, usually just to get new insurance coverage or add someone else to insurance. All my mother needed was the insurance information and access to my information as well as his, which she did. She already had all of my personal information, including my social security number and my insurance information. This is how she signed me up for insurance coverage through the state as well. As some of you speculated, I'm sure it had something to do with the financial control she could exert over me, as well as trying to totally get my boyfriend out of my life. But honestly, I will probably never get the real answers to that. The reason why I didn't get the hospital bills immediately is a pretty easy explanation. First off, my car insurance coverage included medical bill payments as well, up to a certain amount of money. At first, going through the billing process, the hospital, orthopedics, anesthesiologists, etc. had to send their bills through my car insurance first and then through my health insurance. I'm not 100% sure how that all works exactly, but I do know it was a mess, and it took multiple tries to explain to all the doctors what was already paid out, who got money, and the next insurance to the bill, as well as it took weeks for them and myself to realize that while I was in the hospital, the insurance I went in with got cancelled mid-hospital stay. So the bills got sent out to the insurance I had with my boyfriend, which was followed by confusion from the hospital, insurance companies, and myself, trying to figure out when it got cut off, what was covered, and what exactly happened. This takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. My mother did tell me eventually what she had done with my insurance and how she changed it, but by that point, it was too late, and I was scrambling to try and rectify the situation and get as much covered from my hospital stay as possible. Even doing that, I still owe nearly $50,000 in medical bills. For those who had questions about how I had gotten on his insurance in the first place, when he started the job, he had the insurance from which we had qualified as domestic partners because of how long we've been living together. For everyone wondering if we went to the cops or are filing charges or anything along those lines, it's a very long story, but yes, we are. I have a very good lawyer who actually represents myself and my boyfriend. It took me a while after I got home to my apartment to get to the point where I cut contact with my mother. When I finally got home, I tried to start seeing my boyfriend again, and we started the long process of trying to heal from what happened, since my mother had essentially kicked him and his 2 kids out of my apartment in the middle of winter, and they really had nowhere else to go. The kids ended up staying with friends for a while, and he stayed in his car and rented a hotel room when possible. I wasn't fully aware of what exactly was going on at the time, as my mom had my cell phone and access to my phone, and while I was at her home, she watched me like a hawk to make sure I wasn't contacting him. I got berated, screamed at, which was all very confusing because I was on very heavy-duty pain medication, as well as having the confusion from the TBI. After I had made it back to my apartment and started to have more contact with my boyfriend, my mother escalated, staying at my apartment even though I told her I was fine, showing up randomly, and eventually getting so angry that I refused to cut contact with my boyfriend that she threatened to kill him. That was when I grew a slight backbone and decided that it just wasn't going to get better. At that point, I filed for protection as well as my boyfriend, who copied my paperwork. When the first protection orders got dropped, dropped because we didn't have enough evidence. She had gotten a lawyer at this point, but we did not because we couldn't pay for a retainer. And this was before I had gotten smart enough to install cameras and a call recorder on my phone. This is where the friendship with the prosecutor started, and it was very hard for us to get anything to stick because my mother was getting in with our local PD and the prosecutor. Yes, they ended up going after my boyfriend and not me. Yes, that is selective prosecution. And yes, it is very illegal. At this time, my mother and father are retired and apparently have nothing better to do with themselves. They had been in contact with my boyfriend's ex-wife, and at the same time, we were getting beaten down with the perjury case. They had also helped my boyfriend's ex-wife start a custody battle for his children. They had been separated for some time, but the divorce had been stalled in court for several years at this point. They also filed in small claims court for lawyer and court fees after our first protection order was removed. My ex-husband had been allowing my daughter to see both of my parents still, which I did fight, and which had probably spurred the grandparents' rights / visitation case that they filed during this same time. So we have been fighting one thing at a time and collecting all of the evidence that we can. All of the hospital paperwork, especially those that were forged, had to be requested from the hospital. The phone calls to the insurance company needed to be requested, and we needed our lawyer to get those. It wasn't something they were just going to give us, unfortunately. At this point, we have waded through almost all of the court filings my EM had thrown at us, and we're finishing gathering out evidence so we can counterattack at this point. At the time, our lawyer was telling us to be patient and gather as much as we could, and when we get through the thick of it, we can throw what we have into the system. But we needed and wanted / want to have enough to nail them to the wall. From here, there will be counter lawsuits both jointly between myself and my boyfriend, and separate lawsuits, as well as submitting what we have for the identity theft. It's a very long process, and it takes a lot of time, effort, and money to get things moving. For those of you wondering if me and my boyfriend got back together and how that's going, yes, we did get back together. It didn't take long for me to start realizing what was happening when I wasn't being given the heavy narcotics and my brain started healing from the TBI. It did take time for me to wade through everything that happened and try and recall memories. We did get back together, found a new place, and moved back in together with his 2 kids and my daughter. We have had some hard times, and of course, we are both a little damaged from the whole process, but we both have counseling and are doing well. I hope this helps explain and expand the questions everyone has been asking in the comments. Sweet, sweet, sweet baby Jesus. Or great googly moogly, rather. I am so glad OP went no contact after all of that. Literally threatening to kill somebody? This woman is honestly a danger to society, and I really hope that OP and her boyfriend don't give up on the charges. Stay strong, you two, because with the fraud, identity theft, false imprisonment, forgery, and I'm sure other things I'm forgetting that you could charge her with, this evil psychopath could go to prison for a long time, and it's safer for everybody if she does. OP would be doing the world a favor for putting this psychopath in prison. My heart honestly breaks for OP and her boyfriend. They have been through hell and back, and it'll be a long road, but I really hope it works out for them and that they get their justice. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on this one if they arise. But anyway, that is all from me today. Please leave a like and subscribe if you want. I truly appreciate when you do, and I will see you in the next Reddit story. Bye!